Accuracy refers to the closeness of a measured value to a known value. Okay, if you look at the picture up here, I know I'm going to explain that later. Okay, so accuracy simply refers to the closeness of a measured value to a known value. Okay, let's take for example, let me use a data. Let's use a data. Let's assume that maybe you're calculating for the average titer value during titration as volumetric analysis, and we're told or we know that the average titer value, okay, was 20, that's just the value 20.5 centimeter cube. Now this is the value, this is the exact value. Let me use a different color for that. This is the exact value. This is a known value. This is a known value. This is a known value. Now let's assume now I perform my experiments. I did some titration in the laboratory and I got a value. And that value was 20.6 centimeter cube. 20.6 centimeter cube. You can see now my experimental value. Let's call this experimental. My experimental value now was 20.6 centimeter cube. But the original value, okay, that's the original titer value, should be what? Should be 20.5. You can see how close my experimental value is to the known value. So the closeness of a measured value, which is this my experimental value, to a known value is what we call accuracy. So my measured value, or I can say my experimental value, is accurate. Take for example, I did the experiment and I got let's say I got 35.7 centimeter cube. Now this is my experimental value, okay, but this here is my known value. You can see how distant my experimental value is to my known value. So this here is not accurate. Let me spell that correctly. Is not accurate. Is not accurate. So I think you get the idea of accuracy. I think that's about the closeness of a particular value, just one particular value, to a known value. Okay, so this value here is accurate, whereas this value here is not accurate. Let's talk about precision. Precision refers to the closeness of two or more measurements to each other. Now, there's a difference between accuracy and precision. We're not kind of comparing our value to the original value or to a known value. We're comparing our experiment with themselves. Let me assume now that I performed my experiment 3 times. Okay, let me say experiment 1, experiment 2, and let's say experiment 3. These are my experiments. Now I'm comparing the value of my experiment. So let me add the units. Units is very, very important. I'm comparing my experiments now to each other. Compare experiments to each other, and the closest of the closeness of my experiments to each other is what we call precision. Okay, so precision refers to the closeness of 2 or more experiments to each other. So experiment number 1 and experiment number 2, experiment number 3, they are precise. Okay, because they are very close to each other. Let's assume that I got my first experiment to be 20.7. I got my second experiment to be 25.6. My third experiment to be 30.5. You can see, if I compare these 3 experiments to each other, you can see that they are not close in any way. So this here is not precise. Do you understand? Is not precise. But now when I compare each of the value now, okay, to a known value, we call that accuracy. When I compare each of my experiments or each of my numbers to each other, to one another, not just to a particular known value, we call that what? We call that precision. In this diagram, it's quite funny, but it simply explains what precision and accuracy is all about. So sometimes a value might be precise but not accurate. It might be accurate but not precise. It might be both precise and accurate. It might be precise and not accurate. So depends on the kind of error you have in your calculation. Let's look at the first diagram, this first diagram over here. So talking about precise now, talking about accuracy. Accuracy is when this is like a dartboard where you throw those tiny darts, okay? And when you're accurate is when you hit this spot. I don't know if you can see let me make it very colored and make it green colored. When you hit this spot here is when you are what? When you are accurate. Okay? Let me write that well. Is when you are accurate. So you're accurate when you hit this center spot. Now you can see all my darts. Did they hit the center spot? No, they didn't hit the center spot. That means that they are not what? They are not accurate. This dots here you're seeing over here, they are not accurate. Okay, they are not. They are very far away from my known point. Don't forget, accuracy talks about you comparing a measured value to a known value. So this here is acting as a measured value, and this here is acting as a known value. So comparing it now, they are not close to each other. So that means that they are not accurate. When you look at the precision, they are precise. Precision talks about what? Comparing the values to each other. You get? So let's assume that this person threw how many dots? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't really count it. Let's say about 6 dots. But the 6 dots were like they hit almost the same spots. They are close to each other. So that means that this is precise but not accurate. Do you understand? Now, for this other value, that's for the second diagram of that, you can see that each of the points are far from each other. They are far from each other. That tells us that they are not what? They are not precise. They are not precise. Not precise. Don't forget that precision talks about the closeness of values to each other, and they are not close. So that means they are not what? Precise. But if you look at this now, if I compare each of them to the center point, they are quite close to the center point, right? Look at it. Look at each of the points. You can see they are quite close to the point of accuracy. That means that they are all accurate but not precise. I think you get the idea. They are accurate because there is a kind of closeness between each of the points with the center. Do you understand? So let's look at this one. Let's see if it is precise. Okay, we have 1 year, we have 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Obviously, you can see they are not precise. Precision talks about what? Closeness of value to each other. You can see each of the dots, each of the points are not close to each other at all. So definitely not precise. Definitely not precise. So let's see if they're accurate. Let's compare them. Now let's compare the dots now to the center. Okay, comparing them as a group, you can see that they are quite far from the center. They are quite far from this point. Okay, maybe this value is accurate, but the rest, if you compare them as a group, they are not accurate at all. They are very, very far from the center. Okay, if I was to ungroup it and just pick just this, I can say this value here is accurate. Okay, so I'm taking this now as a group now. So as a group now, if you look at it, they are quite far from the exact point. So they are not precise and they are not accurate. Look at the last one here. Obviously, you can see, look at the points. The points are very close to each other. That means they are right. They are precise. There is a precision here. They are precise. Okay. But what about the accuracy? Obviously, also they are accurate because they all fall at the center point. Don't forget that my point of accuracy is the center point. Okay. So they all fall at that point. So that means that this here is both precise and accurate.